here to lead that. Thank you, Emily. Um, we will record. We have a few announcements and policy updates at the beginning, but we still have time now for if anybody else has things to share. We'd love to hear from you. This is primarily a peer-to-peer working group. So, getting to know one another, working together on things, asking questions, sharing updates is what this is all about. So feel free, now is the time. Okay, maybe nothing, but feel free at any point to chime in. You're always welcome to type in the chat or to come off mute to ask a question or to share anything from your perspective. Emily and I have a few announcements and updates. First of all, as always, we do record these meetings, so they are available on our YouTube page. Any past meetings that you may have missed. We also have a Connect group. So the Connect group is where any information is sent out and you can talk asynchronously in between the meetings. So I'd encourage you, most of you may have found this through the Connect group, but if you found us through another way and want to get added to Connect, reach out to Emily and she can add you to our Connect space. That is, anybody can join. You don't have to be an ALA member for that. Moving into policy updates, a couple of updates related to Learn Without Limits. We're still waiting for the cybersecurity pilot program application to open. We heard fall. I don't know if anyone else has heard a more like detailed timeline than that, but I imagine that's coming up pretty soon. Did anyone attend the webinar that the FCC did about that and gain any insights that they can share with the group? Just quickly. Okay, well, I will keep everyone posted if I hear any more about the cybersecurity pilot program. We do have an FAQ on our Learn Without Limits webpage about that for people to check out. Hotspot lending is also underway, so that was posted to the Federal Register last week and is official. Shelby has done a number of webinars to prepare folks. I think some of you joined the one back at the end of July. There's one coming up tomorrow as well, and we can share those links if anyone needs that. ALA is also hosting a Hotspots webinar in partnership with the other library associations, so Urban Libraries Council, COSLA, and ARSL, Association of Rural and Small Libraries, and that will be on September 25th. I have the registration link here. More details to come about that, but this one, different than the Shelby ones or other ones you may have seen. This one will be specific to libraries and especially for libraries that may have not participated in E-rate for other reasons. So the hotspot lending has some slightly different rules than other kinds of E-rate. So definitely, if you're interested in that or think your library might be thinking about E-rate for the first time, definitely check that out or let me know if you have any questions about that. And then related, I think we talked about last month, the legal challenge to the Universal Services Fund. So some mixed news, good news, I guess. Yesterday, that the government was granted a stay. So the funding for USF is in place. There is no change to the programs as of now. And we are waiting for them to set for the Supreme Court to agree to hear the case. So that is likely the next step for that. But this is all still kind of early stages. We know, so the FCC put out state fact sheets about E-rate. I think those are up on our digital equity or on our E-rate page. I forget what we said, Emily, E-rate. Yeah, we can share that. So those are really great to see how E-rate impacts your state and for schools and libraries, and just how huge this program is and how essential it is. So the most important thing that we're doing right now is in any kind of public facing conversations is just letting folks know like what E-rate means to us. And we will be thinking more about how to engage people in that as we learn more about the situation. Emily, I'll turn it over to you for the next announcements.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So just a few quick updates on some webinars related to the Digital Equity Act. You want to make sure is on everybody's radar. So NTIA has been hosting a Digital Equity Act competitive grant webinar series. The next webinar is this Thursday on the 29th at 4 p.m. Eastern. It's on consolidated budget forms, and I will be dropping a link to that in the chat in a second. And they also have an archive of past webinars as well in case you missed any specific webinars in that series. I know it's really helpful thinking about the competitive grant process. And then the next item is that on September 4th, PLA will be hosting a free webinar on expanding digital equity services with new funds now. So join to get essential information, including examples of eligible projects, practical tips to apply for digital equity, state capacity grants, national competitive grants from IMLS, and NTIA and PLA funding for digital literacy workshops. I will drop a link in the chat to register for that. I also believe Bo, who was on this call, is one of the panelists. So looking forward to that webinar there. Yeah. And then with that, I think we can pass it over to Michelle Frisk.
Hi, everyone. 1 second while I get situated. Just 1 second. That is not. Okay. Is everybody seeing my slides? Great. Okay. Okay, so I am here today to talk about, for some reason, the first slide does not want to show up. Oh, there we go. The Digital Equity Competitive Grant. And so I'm just going to provide kind of a quick overview, highlighting some of the things about it, and then we'll have some time for group conversation. Okay, so just to kind of put things in perspective in case you're not thinking about the Digital Equity Act every single day for the last year and a half, just let me get kind of caught up. The federal government is making historic investments through the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act to advance digital equity, literacy, and inclusion for all. The Digital Equity Act, administered by the National Telecommunications and Information Administration, includes 3 grants as part of this IIJA package. We've been providing you brief updates on the first 2 programs over the last year or so. But I wanted to just kind of give you a quick recap of what it is that we've talked about over the last year. So phase 1 was the State Digital Equity Planning Grant, which provided states and territory funds to develop digital equity plans. All states now have digital equity plans. Yay! The second phase is the State Capacity Grant, which will make funds available to each state and territory to put the digital equity plans into action. All the states have applied for this money, and 2 have actually been announced as of getting the grants. They're both Michigan and Maine, and additional states are still waiting to hear. So that's the first 2 pieces: the state planning grant and the state capacity grant. For more information, if you want to learn more about those programs, you can check the Broadband USA website, and we'll provide a link to that. And you can also check out the Digital Equity for Libraries resource page for information as well related to libraries. Okay, that recap is done. Now it's time to talk about what we're all here for, which is the competitive grant program. The competitive grant program makes funds available to a wide range of entities, including libraries, to address barriers to digital equity, promote digital inclusion activities, and spur greater adoption and meaningful use of broadband among covered populations. And I'll talk a little bit more about covered populations in a bit. which are not met by the state capacity grant program. So those things not actually being covered by the states. The state planning grants and state capacity grants all worked through the state and territories broadband offices. The competitive grant, which allows eligible entities like libraries to apply for funding, is actually going to come through the federal program. And so this is the first time that non-broadband office entities are able to apply for federal funds through the Digital Equity Act. So to give you kind of an idea of the scope, and I'll go again more into this later, I'm just kind of giving you a quick little teaser. NTIA anticipates awarding about 150 to 200 competitive grant awards in this award cycle. It is expected that each award will be between $5 million and $12 million, and grant recipients will be announced this winter. It is recommended, because of the scale and scope, $5 million to $12 million grants is fairly large. It is recommended that eligible entities should work together to develop viable proposals. Okay. Now, as I said before, the competitive grant program funds available to a wide range of entities to address barriers to digital equity, promote digital inclusion activities, and spur greater adoption and meaningful use of broadband among covered populations. And here is a list of those covered populations. They include individuals who live in covered households, which are those that have an income not more than 150%, aging individuals, incarcerated individuals, veterans, individuals with disabilities, individuals with language barriers, including individuals who are English language learners and have low levels of literacy, individuals who are members of a racial or ethnic minority group, and individuals who primarily reside in rural areas. For more information about who is covered in each of these covered populations, I recommend that you go to the NOFO, which is the Notice of Funding Opportunity. Each of these covered populations is defined more in depth. And I recommend that if you're thinking about applying, that you go there and read those definitions. Some of the definitions are on page 3, and then there's some other definitions later on in the document. And a link to the NOFO will be added to the chat. Okay, so what is the purpose of the competitive grant? As I said before, but I just feel like I have to say it again, the purpose of the competitive grant is to achieve digital equity, promote digital inclusion activities, and spur greater adoption of broadband among covered populations. So the program plans to make progress against several categories of social and economic goals, including improving access to healthcare, including and improving access to social and civic engagement, providing economic stability, including through workforce development and employment opportunities, providing community access to benefits of internet technology, and access to quality education. If you want to learn more about the goals of this grant, again, you can check the NOFO, and you're going to notice, I hope you can see what I'm circling right now. But if you good, great, okay. Where it says here, NOFO section numeral 1.a, that is the section in the NOFO that will provide more information. So I'm creating like a little breadcrumb for you to go find more information if you want to check on this later. Okay, principles of the competitive grant program. So NTIA seeks applications for programs and activities that address gaps in the implementation of state digital equity plans, will supplement or further advance state digital equity plans, and/or proposals that will address barriers that were not identified in the current state digital equity plans. NTIA encourages innovative approaches that transcend existing digital equity programs. While not stated here, it's stated later on in the NOFO. It also is going to be looking for a diverse pool of recipients. So they're looking for diversity of ideas and people served. And the focus of the competitive grant, in addition to achieving these goals, it has other things it's trying to cover in these applications. And so they want applications to align with the goals of the Digital Equity Act, which is prioritizing covered populations and prioritizing projects with the greatest impact and potential. They want to promote long-lasting and meaningful change. So they want to make sure that there's that there's sustainability and that you're addressing systematic barriers and gaps to digital access. They want to make sure that there's measurable implementation strategies. So measurement and evaluation is extremely important as part of this grant process. And they also, another really important piece is involving stakeholder engagement. So they want you to involve and encourage stakeholders who are directly affected by the proposal strategies so that they can be providing feedback. So they should be active participants. If you're working with a specific covered population, they should be actively involved in this grant process. And so the allowable activities, I don't think this list should be really surprising to anyone of what you see here. You need to support at least one of the following activities: digital inclusion, which is to develop and implement digital inclusion activities that benefit one or more of the covered populations; broadband adoption, which is to facilitate the adoption of broadband by covered populations, to provide educational and employment opportunities, again, to those in the covered populations; upgrade public access centers, which is to construct, upgrade, or expand or operate new or existing public access centers for covered populations through community anchor institutions. Just so you know, libraries are community anchor institutions, along with a whole bunch of others. That you can implement training programs. So implement training programs for covered population that cover basic, advanced, and other applied skills or other workforce development programs, including, for example, digital inclusion projects that address online safety, work to prevent online harassment and abuse. And finally, you can also make equipment available. Again, if you want more information, you can look at this section of the NOFO for more information. Okay, I said this before, but now that you've kind of heard exactly what's covered, I want to just highlight this one more time, is that NTIA does expect to make individual competitive grant program awards to eligible entities. Libraries are eligible entities, along with a whole list of other organizations, including Native entities, within a range of $5 million to $12 million. Eligible entities requesting award amounts outside that range must explain why their application falls below or above this range. NTIA will issue one or more additional NOFOs under the Digital Equity Competitive Grant Program if with remaining funds in future years. And grants must be spent within 4 years from the award date. After the initial 4 years, periodic and performance activities may be evaluated for an additional 1-year period. Okay, I'm going to pause here and I want to ask a question of the group. And I'm going to actually come out of, if I click pause, can you guys see each other? Or do you still see my slides?
We can still see your slides. I think pause is the recording capabilities.
Oh, got it. Okay. I'm going to drop out of, I'm going to stop sharing for a minute. And I had some questions for the group. Okay. One of the questions I wanted to know is anyone planning to apply for the competitive grant either on your own? Like, are you the ones that are kind of leading this, or have you been approached by anyone to apply? And if so, do you want to talk a little, are you willing to share any information? Bo, would you like to share?
Yeah, sure, why not?
What are you planning on focusing on?
So we were recently awarded 1-year funding from our Office of Broadband, state broadband planning dollars. So for that, we're going to utilize that money to pilot learning platforms, so North Star, and get set up. And we're going to have we're going to secure a digital navigation training for librarians for that pilot year. As far as the competitive dollars, I think here in New Mexico, it would be best to have a hotline to proceed a digital navigator program. But if the right partnership presents itself, I would be open for a digital navigator, a statewide digital navigator program, but I don't want to put my foot in my mouth and not go after digital navigator program, but I feel like that's more of like the state needing to like address the state's, you know, issue of not having a statewide digital navigator, you know, department, but maybe I just need to focus on, you know, what we can do in libraries, and that is have some sort of digital navigator program, whether it be through a hotline or kind of in boots on the ground in libraries. So the partnership that was presented for the potential of having that, standing up that hotline, is AARP and the UNM Office of Community Health. So I kind of think that public health partnership with digital equity is a great way to secure, you know, the needed funds, and those are two reputable organizations right there that I feel that NTIA would recognize. So it's just, you know, going after the right, having the right goal in mind, and going, I guess, possibly partnering with maybe the larger organizations, if, well, in my case, because, you know, we're the state library. So that's just kind of like where we are right now.
Thanks. Donna, do you want to share?
Sure.
I can hear you.
Oh, you can hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I didn't. I didn't know. Yeah. We're a Microsoft shop at our library, and so I use Teams a lot, and I'm always, you know, when I
Understood.
use Zoom. Yeah, I'm always like, where is everything? So anyway, my name's Donna Orr. I'm from San Diego County Library. I'm the deputy director here, and we are we, as in the San Diego region, are applying for the competitive grant. It is a huge lift. So we are taking the approach as, you know, libraries as community anchors are the entry point for a lot of people on their digital inclusion or digital skills journey, if you will. And what we're looking at is giving all of the libraries, which is not just county libraries, but San Diego Public and some other, municipal libraries, such as Oceanside and Chula Vista Public Libraries, make sure that we're all on the same level playing field as far as equipment and staff skill level. So when somebody walks into a library, because people don't know about jurisdictions, nor should they have to, they just figure when they walk into a library, it's a library, right? They don't know who owns it or runs it or anything like that. And then we are working with several large CBOs as part of that, and we will be helping screen people to connect them with the correct CBO, if you will, and what they're offering. So for example, we have a CBO that specializes in working with developmentally disabled individuals. We have the International Refuge Committee, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, they all offer, you know, they all work with different cover populations, if you will. And so they will be offering the actual courses.
Mhm.
We're still trying to decide whose course we're going to use. But it's a real heavy lift. It is, of course, you know, they want the grant, they want the partnerships, they want the regional approach. I'm gonna say, if we haven't had, I mean, we are very, 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 very lucky that we are working with 3 different consultants. You know, our jurisdictions have worked with in the past or have already engaged as a consultant for other projects. So we can just like piggyback off of that. So we have engaged grant writer. We are working with the organization called San Diego Regional Policy and Innovation Center. They're going to be our fiscal agent, so we don't have to worry about you're a neutral organization, right? Holding the money, distributing the money. So we don't have to get into any turf wars or anything like that about, who's getting more money than the other person, right? And then also Guidehouse is helping facilitate our meetings. But it's taken us a while to get to this point. And again, it's moving so fast to meet these deadlines. And of course, it's not a great time of the year. People take vacations and such.
Right.
Exactly.
That 60 days goes really quick.
Yeah, it does. And but in a way, it's probably a good thing, because otherwise we would just, if it was too long, right, we would just be stalling. So it's really making us stay on top of our deadlines. And we just had to be agile, flexible, and yeah, but it keeps me very busy. My director pretty much has, I won't say relinquished me of my duties, but he has, I have a very talented staff, so I've been able to delegate a lot of my duties to my chief librarians. So that has helped a lot. So we'll see. I'm not so sure, we're still kind of refining our scope and budget and all of that fun stuff. So we'll see if we get awarded or not. I mean, I think just knowing that there's just so many other people applying, and that it's national is a little scary, because we're all putting in a lot of work, the CBOs, us, the consultants, and everything. So we hope we have a successful grant. I think for us, what's innovative, because that's one of the things that they're looking for, is innovative for us, which is really a regional and approach with all of the libraries and the CBOs together. So that's innovative for us, if you will, but also too, when we are supposed to identify what are the gaps in the state digital equity plan, is we're looking at what makes San Diego County unique compared to other counties in California, right? So, we're a border county. So most of the refugees, immigration, of course, we have a lot of, charities and CBOs too that work with those populations, but they come through San Diego, right? We also have an extremely high cost of living here. More so, I know California is an expensive place to live, but, we're consistently rated, San Diego, as, one of the higher, one of the more expensive cities and regions to live, in the nation. But we also too have a lot of high tech companies here, a robust pharmacy, what am I saying? Anyway, but can't think of it right now, but we do have, a lot of these, technology companies, right, that are looking for a workforce, right? A trained workforce. So we're trying to, develop a path, right, for people as well to get into those jobs, so they can, live and stay in this region, right? Because everyone likes living here. It's beautiful. The weather's great, except when there's a wildfire, but so that's our approach. I guess if that makes sense at all, but again, it's a lot of work, and it's sad to me that that if you are a smaller library or a smaller county or jurisdiction or something, that you might not be able to do this.
Well, and I will say, that's a great segue.
Yeah.
Because we are gonna, Liz, I'll give you a quick chance to say something, and then,
no, that's fine.
No, sorry. And then we do have, just because you're a smaller library doesn't mean that you can't participate in some of this federal funding. And I will provide you some other ideas as well to explore. So thanks. Liz?
Yeah, on that note of, I mean, the timeline is so fast, the need to find partners so that you can take on this huge burden, you know, it's so huge. The dollar amount that they're expecting is so high for a lot of libraries. And yeah, I know this is just like really inaccessible to a lot of libraries. So I'm really excited about what I'm working on, what I'm trying to do here. So my organization is Libraries for Digital Equity, and I'm working with every library. And we're trying to put together this application. I'm just gonna like say it now. I haven't put this out like in public. We're aiming to work with 300 libraries. And we know that there's no way we could have 300 like sub-grantees, 300 partners and do letters of commitment. And so what we're trying to do is find some way to make a really good case for project budgets that we're able to kind of pass on to libraries and work with them and do bulk buying and do bulk training and pass on that capacity and pass on that budget to the libraries so they're able to implement programs in their communities, but we're also able to keep it at a scope and a scale that makes sense for the libraries, and you know, that doesn't require a huge administrative overhead. My like big thing that I care about is take away that administrative burden from especially little libraries, and especially a library that's never done a federal grant before. And so that's my goal, is keep as much of the administrative burden as possible, package it all together into one, you know, description of what we're doing, one like massive effort with one organization, and then be able to pass on the actual things you're giving away or the actual trainings or materials or whatever directly into the libraries. But like, to be honest, it's a little bit of a gamble because this grant is not set up to support that kind of a program. I mean, this is not designed for libraries. And so I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm excited about what we're trying to do. And if anyone in this group is interested in something like that, I would really love input on what kinds of supports you would want to see kind of bundled, what kinds of things you would want to see coming from an organization that's able to pass you some fund, a little bit of funding or a little bit of choice as far as like what kind of materials or what kind of equipment you get. The downside being, you know, since we can't pass it through as a sub-grant, we can't just say, here's $10,000 to do your project. There's a lot less choice for the individual libraries this way. And so, yeah, so I really need some input and some help on exactly what would be, you know, useful in your actual libraries. Yeah, anyway, I've been really excited to talk to this group today, to bring this up and to get whatever thoughts you all have. And Michelle, I'm sorry, I hope that's not too like off, you know, left field.
Nope. Okay, I'm going to go back to the slide so we can talk a little bit more about this and then next steps. 1 second. Okay, so I think one of the recurring things we've heard is kind of that administrative burden, and so and the scale and scope. And so we talked about this being a $5 to $12 million award grant. I also want to let you know that there are, with that, some caveats. You will only be able to get the amount of the competitive award may not exceed 90% of the total project costs. So grantees must secure at least 10% in matching funds. Thankfully, matching funds can be both cash as well as in-kind contributions. And I recommend, if you are seriously looking at this, that you go look at the NOFO section, numeral 3.b, to get more information on that. And then there's a 10% evaluation is going to be huge. So there's a huge component about evaluating the program outcomes and making sure you're achieving goals, especially at serving the covered populations that you're targeting. And so there is a 10% cap, however, on the evaluation costs. So a recipient may receive that amount, but if you need to spend more on that, you can only spend 10% of the grant on that piece. And there's also only a 10%, there's a 10% cap on administrative costs as well. For some organizations, I'm sure that their administrative costs that they have negotiated with different organizations is higher than that. So that's also something to keep in mind. The one kind of thing I also wanted to highlight is that I've said this before, but I'm going to say it again, partnerships are strongly encouraged. However, one organization must take the lead and be responsible for submitting the competitive grant program partnership application. The organization who submits the application is called the authorized representative. So I'm just sharing that information. you can only be an authorized representative once. So you can only put, each organization can only be the authorized entity on one grant. However, you can participate and be a partner in multiple grants. So let's say, since this is an ALA, call, that the American Library Association puts forward an application and they're the authorized representative. They could do that. They can also then be listed as partners, however, in other grants submitted by other organizations in the digital equity ecosystem. So that was one thing I was glad to see, is that you don't have to put all your eggs in one basket, that you can partner with different organizations around different programs that are being submitted. I just kind of wanted to highlight, I mentioned before about, the evaluation is a 10% cap of the budget, and just kind of wanted to highlight that there is a lot around performance measurement and evaluation. Again, check section numeral 2.c for more information. But one of the things I did want to really highlight is that, remember, competitive grant awards are focusing on addressing the needs of covered populations not met by the state capacity grant. So you're going to have to clearly identify the covered population or populations that you're going to be serving. And then you also need to report the number of individuals that belong to those covered populations that are possibly being served. You also need to report on the total number of individuals being served. And you're also going to need to provide anecdotal and personal experiences as testimonies in your as part of your evaluation of your grant if you win the award. So I just want to kind of remind you to center your topic around the covered populations for which you're trying to reach. Key dates. So the application is due September 23rd. Time is ticking, especially with the holiday weekend in there. NTIA expects to begin issuing awards in the winter of 2024 and complete it in April. And again, I've mentioned this before, but I'll repeat it one more time, is that recipients will have 4 years from the date that the funds are awarded to expend them, and then they can get an additional 1 year period for performance evaluation. And just to kind of highlight quickly, here are the reporting mechanisms that you'd be responsible for if you did get the grant. So if you want to learn more about this, check out section 6.f. So next steps, if you're interested, I would say read the NOFO. Check out the Broadband USA Digital Equity Competitive Grant website. That's where everything is. It has resources, the links to all the webinars, both ones that have happened. You can go back and watch them and read, sign up for ones that are coming up. There's FAQs, the application materials, links to the application itself. All there. I also recommend looking at the Digital Equity Resources for Libraries webpage for ideas and additional resources that might help you think about how you might want to approach this. Again, as many have said, this is kind of a high administrative lift, but if things become easier if you work together, so you may want to reach out to others in your community and find out what they're doing, and there's some resources there on how to do that. If you are going to apply, make sure you have a unique entity ID that you create at sam.gov. If you are thinking about doing this, if you don't have a sam.gov account, make sure you get one soon. It can take up to 3 weeks to get one. And there's information in the NOFO on how to do that. And if you are going to submit a grant, make sure you have an account with the NTIA grants portal. I want to just highlight this quickly and remind you is that there's the Digital Equity Services for New Funds Now webinar that will be held on September 4th, and we recommend that you join in and listen to what people around, what other libraries and regional organizations are thinking about doing. The other thing it suggests is build your relationship. Partnerships are strongly recommended. So explore the digital equity ecosystem and find alignment and start conversations about possible collaborations. You might want to reach out to your state library and find out what they're doing, regional consortiums, both library and non-library related, and community partners at the local, regional, and national level. I also wanted to let you know that ALA is currently planning on submitting an application. We are talking with potential partners now. Through these conversations, we are refining the proposal and identifying ways that we can complement and not duplicate the work that other organizations are thinking about applying for. The grant proposal that we're currently developing focuses on building capacity of rural libraries to provide adult digital literacy programs that are sustainable long-term. So a lot of libraries, will use money that comes out to to build up a digital literacy program, and then the funds go away, and so does the program. And so we're hoping to build upon tools that already exist in the ecosystem and supplement those that rural libraries can use with their patrons in order to develop and sustain adult digital literacy programs after grant funds are gone, whether it's this or any other type of program. We would then widely share the sustainable models developed to support digital equity inclusion beyond the grant period to other library organizations, as well as other CBOs, or for those that don't know, community-based organizations. I also want to say that ALA has heard from several other organizations who are also looking to work with libraries. And so I just want to know that libraries are a hot topic when it comes to people exploring this grant. And we're also hearing from our conversations with other organizations that Digital Learn is a popular tool for libraries. And also other community-based organizations who are also currently using this and looking to explore how they might continue to use this moving forward. So I just wanted to highlight that, what ALA is exploring, but also that other organizations in the digital equity ecosystem are actively talking, are also thinking about what role libraries can play in their proposals as well. And then I wanted to remind you too, I know this came up with somebody of, it's hard because smaller libraries might not be able to do this. But remember that there are other funding opportunities that are or will become available. States will be releasing their state capacity grant funds in the coming year. Each state does this differently. Each state will have a different schedule for how this is done. But I would say, monitor your state's digital equity broadband page to see for regular updates on how libraries are going to be included and incorporated into this, because libraries play a major role in many of the state's digital equity plans. Talk to your state library. State libraries are, many have funds that they're using specifically to support digital equity and inclusion, and talk to them about what resources and supports they might be able to provide to you, especially if you're a smaller and or under-resourced library. IMLS also has many types of grants related to this, not just digital equity, but supporting libraries overall. And there's a couple that might be able to you might be able to write grants that would nicely dovetail into IMLS grant options. E-rate is a way to help supplement for public libraries access to your broadband connection. And as Megan stated earlier, E-rate will also support hotspots in the coming year. And so that's another way for libraries to help get additional funding. And I would also look at the local level and see what might be talked about. States have been given money by the federal government through multiple different programs in order to build out broadband and digital inclusion. And so there may be funds that have actually made it down to the local level, maybe not the local library, but the local or regional or county government arena. And so you might want to explore those options and see if something's available. And a really simple, I think, approach is the PLA digital literacy workshop incentives. There's a grant supported by AT&T. The application window has recently opened and it closes on October 18th, where libraries can apply to have funding to help support using digital learn tools in the library. So that's something to explore and check out as well. And with that, I will end and we can go back to having group conversation.
So if nobody speaks up, I raised my hand, but I was trying to be
Oh,
polite.
sorry, I was looking at my notes. Gwen, go ahead.
No, I was
I'm
waiting
like,
for
what
somebody
question
to
do I want
speak
to
up,
ask? Yeah, no,
but
it's like,
everybody's
what
being
question should I
quiet.
kick things off with? But Gwen, if you would like to kick things off, you go ahead.
Okay, well, excuse me, and I'm losing my voice here. I don't know why. So talk about collaborations and partnerships and that kind of thing. I'm one of these people. I'm retired, although I'm busy all the time.
Yeah.
So I'm not affiliated with a library these days specifically. But one of my, aside from digital equity inclusion stuff, one of the other areas, and I heard you mention this, is working with adult literacy and adult learners. And like right now, I have, and I think this may happen, I'm not sure, but I am interested because, we have the libraries as literacy centers. It's a grant that's out there. And that concept of libraries as literacy centers has been around for a few years. So one of the things that I'm interested in, and also hoping other people will look at when you talk about CBOs, is libraries and local adult literacy organizations coming together to serve the covered populations, because frequently when we're teaching digital literacy skills, we overlook the fact that many of our covered population members read below at like the 6th grade level. A lot of them read below a 3rd grade level. And so bringing the expertise and knowledge from the organizations that really focus on that, together with the expertise and knowledge that library folks have for just dealing with their communities in general, I think can be a really powerful partnership.
Couldn't agree more.
So I'm selling actually at the moment.
No, thank you. No, it's a really important part. It's really important to remember that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Whoever has the Delaware Library Square, I will hand it over to you. I just don't see a name.
Isn't that odd? Okay, I'm sorry. So it's been one of those days.
That's okay.
So
I
I'm
know
at-
your name showing up now. Sorry, when I rolled over it, nothing showed.
Okay, all right. So it's a long name. So we were Delaware Libraries was very fortunate to get a planning grant, state planning grant, and also the capacity grant, which is making all our great, wonderful partners not really like eager to work, braiding with us with another grant that we would take, since we got more than half of all the grant money for the state grant. So so I really am anxious to say to the group that if anyone's interested in working with Delaware Libraries on a grant, with the competitive grant, I would love it. We got $1.9 million for digital navigators, is what our capacity grant was. So it'd be something beyond digital navigators. So I've got a lot of ideas. It's just a matter of I'm looking for other people to work with. The idea that was brought to me was to go ahead and just put out a big blast to all of our partners saying, hey, yeah, but I'm not so sure that that's going to work. So anyways, I just want to put that out there. And I'm right in saying that I can't get navigators since I already have the money for that. And at the same hand is that I think that am I at a disadvantage with NTIA when they see the money I've already gotten? In other words, I can't be an anchor. I'm going to have to be like an underling, I think. I mean, politically speaking.
I don't know.
Right? Yeah. Okay.
I would say maybe yes, maybe no, because I'm in North Carolina and we've got, North Carolina has several local collaboratives, digital equity collaboratives. I'm actually on the board of the Digital Durham, but the Charlotte folks, and I'm sure everybody here knows about Charlotte, the Center for Digital Equity
Right.
out of Charlotte. A, they've been around for a long time. B, they've gotten a lot of money over the years. And they are, and we're considering being part of it, putting together a collaborative effort for this grant as well, even though they've already gotten quite a bit of money, and what they're doing is just taking a different angle, taking a different approach, which is they want to build out regional groupings. So for example, my digital equity organization, Digital Durham, is in the Triangle region, so to speak. So if they can have us as one of their subs, sub organizations, it's kind of taking a different approach to providing the services and the programs and so on.
Okay.
So you may be able to do something, and not just say, well, we've got a lot of money and they probably won't look at it. Because if you come at it from a different angle, I think you have a good chance.
I have a lot of different angles. I just think I need somebody else to
You
work
need
with.
more time.
Yeah, I mean, I need more time and I need other people to work with. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right, you have,
A lot of partners that we work with emailed me, said, what? You got all, there was all these people that applied and there was only 2 that they gave to. So I know of over 20 people that applied and we
Mhm.
got the bulk of everything. So I'm just saying, in our state right now, we're thought of fondly as all the things we do, but not so much like we want to work with you on another thing. Yeah. So, okay, well, thank you guys.
yeah, you will want to be able to supplement, not supplant something that you're already doing. And then, but the other thing is that one of the components that you have to demonstrate within the application, especially the authorized representative, which is the person who is the organization that is the one that's going to take the lead on the application process, has to show that they have the capacity and the history to actually, well, not so much history, but the capacity in order to administer a grant of this size. So, you know,
That would be a
that's,
problem.
no, I'm saying that in some ways what you're saying actually demonstrates that. So you've actually hit one of the criteria.
Right.
Which is an
Actually, to
important
tell you
one,
the
yeah.
truth, once you start looking at paying digital navigators, it takes up an amazing amount of money. Just saying. So, okay, all right, thanks.
Emily, is there a specific question you want to ask, or should I just go ahead and pick?
Yeah, I'd say go ahead and pick. I think there's been also a lot of good conversation happening in the chat as well about.
Okay, I haven't been able to watch that. I guess one of the questions, so, we have talked about the competitive grant, but we also know that the states are going to be having capacity grants. And so I guess, what challenges or opportunities are you either facing or seeing as you try to think about the work that you're doing and aligning it with either with the state goals, because the state goals are an important piece of both the competitive and the state capacity grant. So what opportunities and challenges are you thinking about as you review your state's plans? Has everybody read their state's plans? Their own? That's, I guess, one question I'm kind of curious about. Oh, Bertha. Yes.
Well, I can chime in. I
Okay.
think a lot of states are still truly waiting. I mean, we have plans that are like
Mhm.
stated goals, but then there's also the actual plan to spend capacity grant money, which a lot of states are still waiting on
Right.
seeing. And so in my state, they have, we have very broad goals in our equity plan. And I know that is variable from state to state. So it's really hard to understand exactly what is going to be funded under our capacity grant program in the state. So it makes it really hard to talk about the federal grants. So that's why we're kind of, instead of looking at the competitive grant program, we're really more trying to build up partnerships to look at going after the capacity grant. But the amount of money is so much less that it's like the projects have to be smaller. So it's just really challenging to put together partnerships without a lot of concrete specifics at the state level. And I know that, and the problem is that isn't universally across the country. Some folks like Delaware know exactly how much money they're going to get, and other states are still trying to get their broadband offices to return their phone calls. So to me, that's the big challenge.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask another question, but I realized we're actually at time. So I'd like to thank everyone for your participation and your conversation and for being so active on the chat. Really looking forward to going back and looking at all the comments. It's really active. So that's great to see. So thank you for being so participatory today during our conversation. And Emily or Megan, is there anything you want to say as a wrap up?
Thank you, Michelle. Yeah, I think Emily, Michelle, and I will go through and see if there are any other questions. We'll definitely put the link up in the Connect space, the link to the recording in the Connect space. And let's try to continue this conversation there. I think people still have questions for us, but also for one another. So yeah, hope to continue the conversation then. I think we can keep the line open for another minute if people have specific questions for Emily or I, but otherwise, thank you and hope to see you soon. And thanks again, Michelle.
Thank you. See you guys next month.
Yeah.